case requires judgment.
You're going to judge us? You get all your ideas from comic book villains?
Yeah, so Chris, about that. Albert Wesker is a perfect example of why you should never trust anyone that wears sunglasses at night. Wesker was introduced to audiences in the first Resident Evil game as the captain of the STARS Alpha Team, an elite law enforcement unit operating out of Raccoon City. The team was tasked with investigating the Arklay Mountains area outside of the city to find the members of the STARS Bravo team, who had gone missing in the area on a mission to investigate a series of nasty attacks just prior. Of the Alpha Team, Wesker, Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, and Barry Burton make it to the mansion, with pilot Brad Vickers turning tail and flying back to the city. Over the course of Resident Evil 1, we don't see much of Wesker. After the intro cutscene, you run into him in the guardhouse area halfway through the game, but it's not until the end of the game when it's revealed that Wesker was not only working with Umbrella, but the entire mansion setup was an elaborate trap to obtain combat data from STARS members. Wesker promptly awakens Umbrella's newest project, the Tyrant, before seemingly being killed by it. In truth, this ended up being all a part of Wesker's plan. As it turned out, just prior to the mansion incident, Wesker was given an experimental prototype virus by Resident Evil 2 antagonist William Birkin that would give him extraordinary abilities, but with a catch. The virus would only kick in upon reaching a near-death state. I think being impaled in the chest more than qualifies for that. Wesker is able to escape the mansion, though not without some resistance from Lisa Trevor. He'd return sometime later during the events of Resident Evil Code Veronica, now sporting enhanced strength and reflexes, along with a new crimson glow in his eyes. Pursuing the T Veronica virus, Wesker comes across Claire and later has a showdown against Chris that the latter barely escapes from. It's this game where Wesker states his immense hatred of Chris. Sure, his plans were ruined in the first game, but I couldn't imagine why he's so bitter about that towards Chris specifically.
This is the ultimate life form. Tyrant! Chris? Stop it.
After Code Veronica, Wesker would make most of his moves from the shadows, obtaining evidence of Umbrella's crimes and testifying against them in court, which ultimately led to their collapse through the one means that could feasibly end them in one fell swoop: the stock market. Wesker would continue gathering virus samples via proxies, most notably during the events of Resident Evil 4, where we learn that he hires Ada Wong to obtain a dominant Plagas sample. She betrays him in the end and gives him a fake, but Wesker is eventually able to obtain a sample from the corpse of Jack Krauser instead. After establishing a partnership with Tricell, a pharmaceutical conglomerate, Wesker would learn the truth of his origins from Oswald Spencer, the founder of Umbrella. As it turns out, Albert was the product of a eugenics experiment to create the perfect candidate to use the progenitor virus with. Wesker kills Oswald just as Jill and Chris prepare to engage him, having been tipped off about Oswald's estate. They fight Wesker, who effortlessly fends them off, and just as Wesker is about to deliver a fatal blow to Chris, Jill tackles Wesker out of a window, with Chris presuming them dead. This all leads to the events of Resident Evil 5, where Wesker enacts his plan to release a bioweapon called Ouroboros into the atmosphere, in the hopes of starting a new world order with himself at the helm once Ouroboros kills all but the strongest survivors. In addition to Ouroboros, he also turned Jill into an unwilling enforcer for him, after performing research on her and finding that thanks to the T-virus immunization she received during Resident Evil 3, she was capable of producing antibodies that could possibly make Ouroboros more tolerable for human hosts. Wesker's appearance in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is naturally based on his appearance in Resident Evil 5, and depending on how you feel about the tone of the more action-oriented Resident Evil games, one could say he's arguably more at home in the Versus game than in his own series. Wesker also has the distinction of being the main headlining villain on the Capcom side of the roster, opposite Dr. Doom on the Marvel side. The comic made for the vanilla releases collector's edition showed that in an attempt to look into the multiverse to find a way to conquer the Marvel universe, Dr. Doom comes across the Capcom universe, and Wesker is who he makes first contact with. Typical crossover villain plot, you know the vibes. Together, they enact a plan to conquer both universes by siphoning energy from the world chip of Galactus. Of course, that ends up going sideways, and Galactus is ready to consume both universes as retribution. Still though, it's one of the few times a Capcom villain has an important role in a crossover fighter's background setup, and I think it's pretty cool that Wesker was the character they used for that. Wesker's voice actor in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is DC Douglas, who began voicing him in Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles and voiced him in various games afterwards, most famously Resident Evil 5. His performance in Resident Evil 5 in particular is a fan favorite, thanks to the fittingly over-the-top delivery of his lines, many of which went on to become memes in their own right.
Boras will be released into the atmosphere, ensuring complete global saturation.
He's also done voice work in tons of properties across different media, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Tales of Vesperia, Nier Automata, Regular Show, and Tekken to name a few. His Japanese voice actor is Joji Nakata. He's remained Wesker's Japanese voice actor from this game onwards to this very day, most recently voicing him in Tekken as well as Resident Evil 4 Remake. He's also voiced Luxord in the Kingdom Hearts series, as well as Soul Bad Guy from Guilty Gear 2 onwards. But he's perhaps best known as the voice of Alucard in Hellsing. Alright, so I'm gonna be for real with y'all here. Wesker's not just my favorite Resident Evil character, but my favorite character of all time to play as in a fighting game. So apologies in advance if I end up rambling on more than one occasion about how cool he is. I'll try to rein it in, but you know. All that being said, let's begin. Wesker is an in-your-face rushdown character in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. He can use his Samurai Edge pistol for some light keep away and his teleports to stall or disorient the opponent, but they're best used to force an opening so that he can get in and begin his offense. In the transition from the game's initial release to the Ultimate release in late 2011, Wesker gained a new unique mechanic involving his sunglasses. In the original release, Wesker's glasses could break over the course of a fight. This was purely cosmetic and mostly just a visual Easter egg. While the glasses still function similarly in Ultimate, Wesker now gets a damage and speed buff dependent on how damaged the glasses are. If they're cracked, he gets a 10% speed boost and a 10% power boost, and if they're completely destroyed, the power boost goes up to 15%. Even more notable is that these buffs actually stack on top of X Factor, making X Factor level 3 Wesker in particular a hard-hitting character, which is definitely part of the reason why he was a common anchor character early on in the game's lifespan. As the game's meta developed though, more and more people found that despite his potential buffs, Wesker works better as a point character since he actually has issues opening up characters solo, something that could cripple any anchor character regardless of their damage output. Wesker's moveset in general is derived from Resident Evil 5, and like with Joe, this extends beyond his special moves and command normals. Some of his normals and his forward throw are from Resident Evil 5 as well. His standing medium attack is his Panther Fang attack from Resident Evil 5. This was done in that game by shooting an opponent in the arm to stun them. His standing heavy is taken from this spinning kick attack he can perform in the boss battle against them in Resident Evil 5. His crouching heavy attack is a sweep kick also taken from his boss moveset. His launcher is his Tiger Uppercut from Resident Evil 5. There, it was done by shooting an opponent in the leg to bring them to their knees and then following up with a melee attack from there. He has a special move by this name as well in Marvel 3, but I'll talk about that a bit later. Tiger Uppercut is of course best known as the signature move of Sagat from Street Fighter. It's not the only Street Fighter shoutout on Wesker's localized move name list, as we'll later discuss. His forward throw is Windfall from Resident Evil 5.
You were.
This was an axe kick Wesker could perform on downed enemies. Wesker's Soul Command normal is one of his most important moves altogether, his Samurai Edge. Wesker pops out the Samurai Edge and fires off a quick gunshot straight forward. Keep in mind that this will absolutely pass over short characters and characters that are ducking or in low profile states. Wesker has the ability to do a teleport follow-up as he's firing the gun. Pressing light has him teleport forwards, medium backwards, and heavy in front of and above the opponent. Wesker has an alternate version that he can perform that angles downwards. This one hits low and can notably OTG. This can be comboed off of early in the combo, but do it later in the combo and the opponent will likely flip out. That's not entirely a bad thing though, as you can go for some air grab resets if you think your opponent won't anticipate it, OTG with the gun afterwards, and then continue a combo from there. This is particularly good for combos, if you have an assist that will allow Wesker to continue a combo from a Samurai Edge pickup. The best Wesker teams are usually built around him getting the most damage mileage out of his assists and OTG pickups. Wesker can also use the Samurai Edge in the air as well, though he always fires it diagonally downwards. The Samurai Edge itself is a weapon with a long history in Resident Evil. These were a series of customized handguns designed by Robert Kendo of Resident Evil 2 fame. Kendo himself was a close friend of STARS member Barry Burton, who more than likely put the order in for the guns. Every member of STARS Alpha Team carried a customized Samurai Edge, though Wesker's, a custom Beretta 92F, would become the most prominent. Even after the events of Resident Evil 1, Wesker kept and further customized his Samurai Edge, specifically using it in Resident Evil 5 in his boss fight. One neat detail in that game is that Wesker has a standard pistol that he uses in some cutscenes, but he only ever pulls out the Samurai Edge in cutscenes and in gameplay if he's about to shoot Chris specifically with it. This can be seen specifically in this Resident Evil 5 scene, where he shoots at Sheva with a different gun before pulling out his Samurai Edge to finish off Chris. You can even see the stars engraving on it if you look close enough. I guess the idea is that he keeps it around specifically so that he can kill Chris with it. Wesker seems like the kind of person that would love the irony of Chris being killed by a weapon he used from his time in STARS, so that tracks. Though you won't see it in game, the model for the Samurai Edge in Marvel 3 also has the stars engraving on it as well, as displayed in a promotional screenshot for the game. Really cool attention to detail considering it legitimately wouldn't be discernible otherwise. The Samurai Edge itself would appear in other games in the series as well, usually as a bonus weapon, like in Resident Evil 2 Remake. Wesker's first special move is Cobra Strike, done with a quarter circle forward and light attack. Wesker thrusts his palm forward, knocking the opponent down. Wesker can dash forward and use the low-hitting Samurai Edge to continue the combo, and he can also perform a teleport follow-up as well, similar to the one he can do after any version of Samurai Edge. This move is taken from Resident Evil 5, where it's a melee attack he can perform by shooting an enemy in the head to stun them. Next is Ghost Butterfly, done with a quarter circle forward and medium attack. This one has wall bouncing capabilities, allowing Wesker to continue a combo afterwards. Like the previous moves, he can also cancel this into a teleport. In RE5, this move can only be done in one of two specific situations: as a combo finisher in co-op mode with a partner, or by shooting a chain gun Majini in the head and then following up with a melee attack. Jaguar Dash is done with a quarter circle forward and heavy attack. Wesker pauses for a second before running forward, becoming a traveling hitbox of sorts while the move is active. This is based off of his dash ability in Resident Evil 5, which he uses not only in his boss fight, but also has as a secret move of sorts in Mercenaries mode. He can't cancel this into a teleport, but like in Resident Evil 5, this attack also has a dedicated follow-up that can be done on hit or on block. By pressing heavy attack on hit from Jaguar Dash, Wesker can perform Jaguar Kick, which spins the opponent out and allows them to be comboed afterwards. Initiating this is much safer than letting Jaguar Dash's recovery play out, so it's recommended to use this if you want to remain safe. The move itself in Marvel 3 is named after his Jaguar Kick attack in Resident Evil 5, but that's actually not what the attack is based off of. It's based on his knee cannon attack from Resident Evil 5. There, after Wesker initiates a dash, he can perform a dashing knee strike by pressing the melee attack button. Jaguar Kick is the other Street Fighter shoutout in Wesker's moveset, this time to Adon, who has the move as one of his signature attacks. Wesker has a command grab that can be done with a half circle back motion and attack.
You are beaten.
The range and speed is dependent on the strength of the attack button. Light is fast and has the most range and causes a soft knockdown, while heavy is slower but can wall bounce if successful. The kick at the end is taken directly from the move of the same name in Resident Evil 5. done by shooting an enemy in the leg and then melee attacking them from behind. Phantom move is done with a dragon punch motion in any attack.
Over here.
This is essentially a manual version of the teleports he can do off of some of his aforementioned moves, and the button strength corresponds to the exact same teleports as before as well. This can also be done in the air. In the Resident Evil games, and specifically Resident Evil 5, Wesker can move at speeds high enough that to the human eye, it looks as though he's teleporting, which is what the move is based on. Tiger Uppercut is a counterattack Wesker can perform with a reverse dragon punch and attack. The button strength dictates what kind of counter he can do. The light variant is the move's namesake, as he'll counter with his Tiger Uppercut launcher. This one counters standing attacks. The medium variant counters low attacks specifically, and he will counter with a palm strike that wall bounces. The heavy variant is specifically a projectile counter, and he will counter with a shoulder check that also wall bounces. This only works on regular projectiles, so don't go out there attempting this on like proton cannons or whatever. Wesker's first hyper combo is Phantom Dance, done with a quarter circle forward in 2 attacks.
Maximum!
This hyper combo is very similar to the older incarnation of Spider-Man's Maximum Spider Super, so much so that the move is affectionately referred to by fans as Maximum Wesker. Deadpool specifically got an additional win quote against Spider-Man pointing out the similarity as well. Phantom Dance is a weird super. It's the only super of his that can be done in the air, making it his de facto combo ender in most situations, but its effectiveness is fluid to say the least. It's best done if the opponent is in the middle of the stage, as it'll likely get the maximum amount of damage and hits from there. In the corner though, it's a bit more random, and sometimes the opponent will just drop out for no reason in particular. However, it's somewhat similar to Virgil's Dimension Slash super in that sometimes it'll randomly decide the course of the opponent, which is great. Don't go depending on that to happen as a concrete part of your game plan though. This move has additional utility in Ultimate Marvel 3, as Wesker will remove his sunglasses during the move startup animation, buffing his damage and speed until he dies, is tagged out, or taunts. It's generally recommended to use this move ASAP when Wesker is on point in order to have him playing at his full potential early on. Wesker's second hyper combo is Rhino Charge, done with a quarter circle back in 2 attacks.
Such a waste of life.
Maximum!
You don't stand a chance. Such a waste of life.
This is a counter super, and if Wesker is hit by a physical attack, hyper combo or otherwise, while it's active, he'll respond by plunging his arm through the opponent's chest. This leads to a crumple state that will allow Wesker to perform a follow-up combo right after. This move was massively nerfed in the transition to Ultimate Marvel 3. In the vanilla release, this move had invincibility on startup, meaning Wesker could reliably use this on reaction to punish incoming attacks. Moreover, this was also one of a handful of moves used to initiate the DHC glitch, a glitch that essentially reset damage scaling during combos, as eloquently explained by New York City commentator legend Chris Hu.
DHC glitch, that means you can do a combo into another combo with a super, but that combo is not landing any combo, but when he knocked down, it's still a combo, you understand? Hell no, what the fuck?
In Ultimate, that invincibility was removed, meaning that if you want to use this, it needs to be a hard read, or else you'll just get hit or thrown out of it since the opponent can react to the move's Super Flash. Rhino Charge is another move taken from Resident Evil 5. Like Ghost Butterfly, this is largely a move that can only be done as a combo finisher with a co-op partner, though you can also perform this on Chain Gun Majini by shooting them in the legs and then melee attacking them. Wesker also has this as one of his context-sensitive attacks in his Resident Evil 5 boss fight. Specifically, if you mess up the button prompt to dodge it, it results in an instant game over there. Wesker's final hyper combo is his level 3, Lost in Nightmares, done with a Dragon Punch motion in 2 attacks. This has Wesker viciously attack the opponent with melee strikes before hitting them upwards and slamming a missile down into their face. The missile seems like kind of a random addition at first, but this is also a reference to his Resident Evil 5 boss fight. There, to lower his field of view, because sunglasses at nighttime don't really mix very well, you have to turn off the spotlights in the fight arena. Once you do, he'll hop over to some missiles that just casually happen to be lying around, and he'll start chucking them at you as if they were paper airplanes. The move name itself is a reference to the Resident Evil 5 scenario of the same name, which depicts Jill and Chris's infiltration of the Spencer estate, in the encounter with Wesker that leaves Chris thinking that both he and Jill were dead. Small side note here, but Wesker's hyper combos all have a distinct sound effect during their startup. While it's not specifically a sound clip from the Resident Evil series, it seems to invoke the kind of sound clip that play in the old PS1 entries whenever a character discovers something particularly fucked up. Wesker's first assist is Ghost Butterfly. Wesker's second assist is Samurai Edge Low. This is the go-to assist for most Wesker players, as it's far and away his most useful. It's the single best OTG assist in the game and enables combo extensions for pretty much the entire cast. Wesker's third assist is Jaguar Dash. Wesker's theme in Marvel 3 is a rock arrangement of the first of his two final boss themes in Resident Evil 5, Winds of Madness. It's a pretty good remix. If you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you'll know that I usually have the Versus Series remix of a character's theme playing for the Moveset overview. But the original theme is legitimately one of my favorite Resident Evil themes of all time, and one of the best boss themes of that generation outside of Metal Gear Rising, so I couldn't resist. Resident Evil 5 probably has the best soundtrack in the series outside of maybe Darkside Chronicles, at least in terms of production value, since it goes for a more cinematic orchestral flair. I think that's a perfect choice specifically for Wesker's theme here, since this was the first time in the series' history that players could directly fight Wesker, outside of the weird zombie Wesker in the Saturn port of the first game. Its appearance in Marvel 3 would begin an understated but traceable tradition of treating this as Wesker's general leitmotif in other games, notably getting a really great remix in Tekken, and most recently and notably having a bit of it playing during the ending stinger of Resident Evil 4 Remake's Separate Ways scenario, all but confirming a Resident Evil 5 remake is in the cards. Here are Wesker's colors. Color 6 is based off of Bison from Street Fighter. Wesker's alternate is his STARS uniform. This is what he wore in Resident Evil 1, though it's modeled specifically after the design for Resident Evil 1's remake. This was an unlockable variant of him in Resident Evil 5's Mercenaries mode as well, where he's generally considered the best character in the first batch of characters among players. In Vanilla Marvel 3, Wesker specifically had a color scheme that resembled Virgil. They removed it from Ultimate since Virgil himself got in the game though. Here are all of Wesker's character interactions.
It's time to close the book on us.
I found Wesker. I'm bringing him in.
Ready? I will not be held back by such insects. Let's see how good you really are.
Ready for training.
It's do or die. I expected better from you. Looks like I found a new guinea pig. Interesting.
So what's this I hear about a place called Raccoon City?
Get ready to brawl. Fight! Now you know, I am a god over man and beast. I am the only god.
I fight on behalf of all of Asgard.
It's do or die. Fight! I am the only god.
It makes all the sense in the world that Wesker got into the Versus series. With Chris being the very first newcomer revealed for the game, pretty much everyone pinned Wesker as a likely inclusion since he'd be a villain, something the series has historically lacked on the Capcom side, and let's be real, he probably fits the series better than any other Resident Evil character. Wesker's last canonical appearance in the series was in Resident Evil 5, where he's finally put down for good in the volcano, but it speaks volumes for his legacy that he's found numerous ways to appear beyond that. He's a playable character in Mercenaries 3D on 3DS, a game that honestly desperately needs an HD follow-up, and he's also playable in the raid mode for Resident Evil Revelations 2. He was a bonus downloadable character in Lost Planet 2, and his legacy is also a big part of Resident Evil 6, with his son, Jake Muller, coming to grips with being the progeny of a man that tried to destroy the world. Dead by Daylight isn't really a game I have any interest in, but there's no way I could skip over his appearance as a killer in that game as well. He was also in the Netflix Resident Evil show portrayed by the late, great Lance Reddick as well. And with Capcom going all in on Resident Evil remakes these days, Wesker finally showed up in a significant capacity in Resident Evil 4 Remake, reprising his role from the original as the man who hired Ada in separate ways, and also returns as a playable character in that game's Mercenaries mode as well. With the Resident Evil 5 remake more than likely on the horizon, it seems like a new genesis is at hand for our favorite sunglasses-wearing megalomaniac, and I'm kinda here for it. That said, that's going to do it for this video. As always, thanks for watching, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.